Well, it's the day that tens of millions of Americans dread every year, Tax Day, April the 15th. Well, that's what's worse than paying taxes. Paying taxes that you may not even owe. Take a look at this.
As Americans scramble to file before the tax deadline, millions will inevitably pay untold billions of dollars to the government. Surprisingly, money that many may not even owe. Tax expert Daniel Pilla says the federal government often looks to the Internal Revenue Service as a first line of attack in balancing the budget.
You take all 20,000 pages of the tax code and you can boil it down to 3 words: get the money.
The tax litigation consultant says in addition to what many view as unfair taxation, well over 25 million taxpayers will also be mistakenly audited this year alone. Add confusing laws, costly penalties, and excessively high interest rates. The result? Millions drowning in debt, afraid to answer the next knock at the door. In his book, How to Get Tax Amnesty, Pilla unlocks the taxpayer's rights buried deep in the tax code, offering liberation from tax debt just in time for April 17th.
Well, it's a dread day, and we've got a man with us who's an expert. He's written a book called How to Get Tax Amnesty, and he's got the workbook that goes along with it that's available. You can get. We'll tell you how to get them later on. Pleasure to welcome back to the 700 Club, Dan Pilla. Good to have you with us again.
It's good to be here, Pat. How are you? Good to see you again.
Tax day comes up, you don't have the money. Do you file? You don't file?
Yeah, absolutely. You file a return. In fact,
absolutely you file.
Yes, even if you don't have the money to pay. And this is one of the mistakes that people make, which only adds insult to injury. Because when you don't file the tax return, Pat, the IRS adds up to a 25% penalty for failure to file a return. So if you've got a difficult situation to start with financially, it turns into an impossible one by the time they add in the interest and penalties. So don't make the mistake of not filing the return. File the return on time, and then there's some steps you can take to get set up with some kind of a payment plan with the IRS. There's a number of different things you can do to take the sting out of not having the money.
What do you do? What's the...
Well, let's talk about a couple of strategies.
Yeah, sure.
First thing I recommend people do is get the top secret IRS form that they never try to tell you about. All right, that's Form 1127, Form 1127.
Top secret.
It's top secret. They don't like to tell people about it. I call it the top secret form.
Okay, yeah,
but this is, you know, you never see the IRS talking about this form. It's not something that shows up in their publications as an option that you can follow. But the Form 1127 is called an application for an extension of time to file the tax return, or I'm sorry, to pay the taxes. It's an application for an extension of time to pay the taxes.
Well, you can get the extension of time almost automatically.
That's right. You can get a filing extension automatically,
You're
but
right.
You can't get an extension to pay the tax.
Okay.
The tax is still due on April 15th. But if you file that Form 1127, that can get you up to 6 additional months to pay the taxes without penalties. And so that can help you. Now, if 6 months isn't going to be enough time, then you go to Plan B. And the good thing about having 20,000 pages of tax code is there's always Plan B and Plan C.
You take off from Vanuatu. No, what's next?
You could do that, but that probably wouldn't solve the problem either. But Plan B is Form 9465. Form 9465 is called an installment agreement request, and that'll set the wheels in motion to get you set up on an installment payment where you can pay the taxes over time.
And they'll go for that?
And they'll go for that. As a matter of fact, the IRS has softened its rules quite significantly here in the last year. That makes it even easier now to get set up on an installment agreement than it has been in times past. So this is something that people need to be aware of. And in the tax amnesty material, I walk you step by step through that process.
If the IRS does an audit and sends you a letter saying we've done an audit, how accurate are those audits?
Well, the audits are wrong. According to the IRS's own statistics, their audit results are wrong between 60 to 90% of the time.
Oh, come on.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about it. In fact, the face-to-face audits, Pat, are the worst because, I've documented in my writings and during the Senate Finance Committee hearings and IRS abuse. You remember those hearings more than 10 years ago in Congress. They were looking into what the IRS was doing. I documented 13 specific ways that the IRS uses bluff and intimidation, misinformation and disinformation, and in many cases they just outright lie to people.
Audits? Are these people they just picked up off the street? I mean, are they skilled accountants? Or
the promo spot before the interview had my clip from our last discussion that we had a year ago, where I said, you take all 20,000 pages of the tax code and boil it down to 3 words: get the money. And that's what these people want to do, Pat. I mean, it's unfortunate, but you've got, listen, you've got a great number of IRS personnel that are trying to do an honest job under impossible circumstances. Unfortunately, you have too many of them that aren't interested in following the law. They just want to get more money. And this audit process is one way they do it. And we see this over and over and over again in audit cases.
You know, I used to do my taxes. I couldn't even begin to do my taxes now. They go to an accountant, and I'm not even sure how much comes in and how much goes out or how much is owed. They just send me a thing and say, here, fill this out. And I say, okay. I mean,
and you're not alone, Pat. There's more and more and more Americans that are turning to tax pros between the combination of tax preparers, CPAs, and so on, and tax preparation software that's available in the market now that wasn't available, 15 years ago. About 80% of the people out there are using a tax pro to do their tax returns.
Because they can't do it, it's too complicated?
No, most people can't do it themselves, yeah.
They can't do it. We've got a system.
We've got a system that's so complicated that two people of reasonable intelligence, Pat, can sit down and look at the same body of tax law and come away with two completely different understandings as to what it means. And when you've got a tax law, when you've got any law like that, it's fundamentally unsound and it needs to be changed.
Do you think there's any possibility it'll ever get changed?
Here's the problem with tax reform. And people ask me this question all the time. What is it going to take to get tax reform? The problem, Pat, is Congress likes the tax laws just the way they are.
Why?
And the reason is because they use the tax code to pick winners and losers in the marketplace. It's not about raising revenue. It's, well, yeah, revenue's on the list, of course. Right. They need the money, no question about that. But the first thing that the tax code does, it allows Congress to penalize what they consider to be bad behavior and to reward what they consider to be good behavior. Well, the problem with that is every 2 years the definition changes as to what's good behavior and what isn't, right? So that's number one. Number two, they buy and sell legislative favors using the tax code as currency. And number three on the list, oh, by the way, we need the money. So that's what the code is all about. And if you simplify the tax code to the point where the average American can determine at a glance what their tax liability is, comply with the obligation to pay that tax quickly and easily, then Washington loses all control. And you know better than I do that that Washington does not want to lose control.
Right. Not to mention the lawyers and accountants who profit on this tremendously.
Well, and certainly there are those out there that do, Pat. I mean, it's an industry. There's no question about that. But that's not what's driving this thing. That's not what's driving it.
Well, this book is called Tax Amnesty. Can you get amnesty, really? I mean, is that a...
Well, there are programs that are available that will help you to reduce or eliminate your tax debt, depending on your situation. One of the programs I talk about in the book is a program the IRS calls the Offer and Compromise Program that allows you to go in there and say, look, guys, I owe you $50,000 or $100,000. There's no way I can pay that much. I can pay something less than that. Maybe the number's 5,000 or 10 or 20, depending on your financial circumstances. And if you qualify, the IRS will settle for less than you owe. There's no doubt about it.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's good news for a lot of people that are struggling.
How do you get these books?
These books are available from the 700 Club website. There's a link. And then my phone number is 1-800-34-NO-TAX. That's 800-34-NOTAX.
That's a good one to remember. For all of us, Tax Amnesty. Danville, you're terrific. Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's stuff you need to know.